The world outside is quiet, the snow falling softly, and inside, everything feels just right. The quiet of the night wraps around you like a warm blanket. This is the story of a memory in the making, a moment you might not remember now, but one that will stay with you for a lifetime. Hello, I'm the window, standing here between the world outside and the warmth within. Just about an hour ago, before Daniel fell asleep, he stood before me, pressing his face against my cool glass. The room behind him was warm, filled with soft, golden light. Daniel, 4 years old, leaned in closer. His tiny hands rested on the sill, and his breath left little foggy imprints on my surface. Outside, the snow fell, gently, silently, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky in intricate patterns, delicate and unique, and the streetlight outside cast a soft golden glow that made the snow look like something out of a dream. Daniel's wide eyes followed each flake as it danced in the air, watching as they floated down before settling softly onto the earth. He was so still, so focused, as though he were in a trance. I could feel him getting lost in the world outside. It wasn't just that he was watching the snowfall. It was as if he was being drawn into it, as if each flake was a piece of a story that only he could understand. The world outside, with its crisp white blanket, had a way of pulling everything into a kind of quiet, peaceful stillness. And for Daniel, it was enough. He didn't need to speak. There was something about this moment that spoke to him louder than words could. I could hear the faint sound of his mother downstairs, humming to herself as she moved around the house. Her soft voice floated up through the floors, a gentle, comforting presence in the background. Sometimes, when the house was quiet, you could hear the little things, the creak of the floorboards as she walked, the quiet rustling of something being put away in the kitchen, and that humming. She wasn't singing exactly, more like humming a tune that she didn't even know she was humming, a little song that filled the empty spaces and made the house feel alive. Daniel didn't notice his mother's presence yet. He was too absorbed in what was happening outside, but I could sense that he felt her, in the way the warmth of the house enveloped him, the soft hum of his mother's voice making him feel safe. It was a quiet kind of connection, the kind that only family shares. She wasn't in the room with him, but her presence was there, just as much as the snow outside. Daniel's gaze would drift from the snowflakes, following the gentle movements of the world outside. He'd catch sight of a shadow moving across the snow, a cat, perhaps, slinking through the quiet streets, its fur dark against the white backdrop. The cat's movements were fluid, like a dancer moving across a stage. Daniel's eyes would follow the cat for a moment, then drift back to the snowflakes, as if they were calling him back to them. And then, in the distance, the sound of a car driving by would break the silence, the tires crunching on the snow, the sound soft and muffled in the stillness. The car's headlights cut through the night, leaving long streaks of light across the darkened street before disappearing into the distance. And there it was again. The snow. The snow kept falling, keeping time with the rhythm of the world, a silent heartbeat that kept everything in its place. Daniel didn't know it, but this moment, this quiet, peaceful moment of stillness and snow, would stay with him. Not as a memory of something important or grand, but simply as a feeling. The feeling of peace. The feeling of being part of something bigger, of something greater than yourself. It was a moment that, in its simplicity, was full of meaning. And for Daniel, this feeling would become a core memory, something that he could hold on to forever, even when he grew older. As the minutes passed, I could feel him beginning to lose himself in the peacefulness of it all. The world outside seemed so gentle, so calm, that it became hard to distinguish where the outside world ended and the feeling inside him began. He was floating, in a way, not really thinking about anything, just feeling the stillness, the quiet, the snow. His body swayed ever so slightly with the rhythm of the world, his little fingers pressing against the glass as though he were reaching out to touch the snowflakes themselves, his little chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. His eyelids began to flutter, each blink slower than the one before, a kind of sleepiness settling over him. I could feel it spreading, as if the drowsiness travelled from his eyes to his small, steady shoulders. His posture softened, his body resting more against the sill, as though he'd given up the effort to stay alert and was letting himself drift. The rhythm of his breathing grew deeper, steady like the snow outside, as if the scene itself were singing him to sleep. And then, as if the stillness had become too much to resist, he finally let out a long, slow sigh. His eyelids fluttered, and before long his small body was heavy with sleep, his tiny fingers releasing their grip on the sill. Daniel had fallen asleep right there in front of me, in the peace of the snow. The moment that had started so quietly, so gently, was now a part of him. The world outside, the falling snow, the soft glow of the streetlight. It had all woven itself into his dreams, into his very soul. And in that moment, as I watched him drift into sleep, I knew that this memory, the memory of the snow, the memory of the stillness, the memory of that quiet, peaceful moment, would stay with him for the rest of his life. And there, in the warmth of the room, I stood watching over Daniel as he slept, watching as life unfolded, moment by moment, like the slow fall of snowflakes in the quiet of the night. In this stillness, I could feel the love that surrounds him. His world is one of warmth and security, a world where his mum works from home and is always there for him and his little sister, Sophie. The kitchen, where Mum often spends time preparing meals, is filled with the delicious smells of dinner as Daniel and Sophie eagerly help her. Daniel loves this time, especially when he gets to help her chop vegetables or mix ingredients. Making green dinosaur pancakes has become their special ritual, a fun disguise for Mom's clever way of making sure Daniel and Sophie eat enough vegetables. Little Sophie loves to be included in every activity. She is very nurturing when she takes care of all her stuffed unicorns. She's not always the quickest to follow the rules, her temper flaring when things don't go her way, and she's often the last to sit down at the dinner table, distracted by the world around her as she eats slowly and everyone has to wait. But her laugh is infectious and her heart is pure, always coming back to her family with warm hugs, though she's quick to let everyone know she doesn't like kisses. And then there's their dad, always ready to play, always involved in their games. Whether it's teaching Daniel how to ride a bike or playing puzzles in the evening, their dad is a constant source of support and joy. He's the one who takes them for a drink in the cafe down the street, always showing them the little moments of connection that make the world feel smaller, more intimate. And then, of course, there's Mochi, the cat. She was adopted when she was 4 years old. At first, she wasn't quite sure about the new family that had welcomed her into their home. The noise of the growing family, the small hands of children reaching for her, and the constant bustle of life didn't sit well with her at all. For a while she kept her distance, watching Daniel and Sophie from the shadows, wary of their energy and curiosity. But over time, Mochi began to warm up. Daniel, with his calm, gentle nature, was the first to earn her trust. He would quietly sit near her, not forcing any attention on her, but offering small gestures of kindness, a soft scratch behind the ears, a gentle pat on the head. Mochi began to realize that Daniel wasn't a threat, and over the months she grew more comfortable with him. Now Mochi is often found curled up beside Daniel on his bed or perched at the window, her eyes half closed in contentment as she shares his space in the most peaceful way. Their home is filled with small, comforting details. At the center of their home is a warm, inviting living room where an old LP player sits, often spinning songs from decades past. The crackling melodies fill the space, casting a nostalgic glow over the room. Sometimes Dad can be found there, absorbed in a book, while Daniel and Sophie play nearby, their laughter mixing with the soft notes of the music. And on special afternoons, they all dance together to the vinyl's rhythm, laughter, and music echoing through the house. The hallway is full of family pictures. The walls tell the story of their life together, from early days when Daniel and Sophie were small to recent adventures from family trips. The hallway is filled with frames showcasing snapshots of their journeys, where they tried all kinds of new and funny foods, octopus on a stick, seaweed soup, and plates of things they couldn't even pronounce. These small details, the music, the well-loved books, the photos filled with memories, make their house feel alive, a true heart of their family where every corner holds a story. Daniel's room is his own little world, cozy and full of things he loves. His bed is soft and snug, ready to welcome him at the end of each day. A small nightlight glows gently beside it, casting a warm light that stays on through the night, making him feel safe and at home. He has a lot of books. Most of them are about animals, especially reptiles. He's got everything from big picture books of snakes and lizards to more detailed guides. He dreams of becoming a reptile caretaker when he grows up. There are pictures pinned to the wall showing Daniel's own adventures, one with a large albino snake coiling gently around his arm, another where he's feeding a big scary lizard with a big smile on his face. His desk is full with puzzles, a mix of half-finished pieces and completed ones, and on the floor there's a soft mattress set up just for playtime wrestling matches with Dad and his little sister Sophie. There's nothing better than diving onto that mattress, giggling and rolling around as they play, the room filling with laughter. Every detail of Daniel's room makes it feel like a place made just for him, a cozy, safe corner of the house where he can dream, learn, and play. As Daniel seemed to be in a deep, peaceful sleep, I could feel the room growing quieter with each passing moment. The soft rise and fall of his chest, a rhythmic pattern that matched the stillness of the world outside. His little body warm and secure, hidden from the cold winds that howled outside. I could still see the snow gently falling through my glass, drifting in delicate swirls as it caught the light of the street lamp. The world outside was cold and silent, the snow turning everything into a soft, white blur. But inside, Daniel was safe, resting and unaware of the chill that lingered just beyond me. The warmth from his body was comforting, almost like a quiet presence that surrounded him. His warmth was in every part of the room, in the blankets, in the soft breath escaping his lips, in the gentle hum of his heart. Even though the night air was cold, I could feel the heat of his little body against my cool surface, a reminder that he was protected, safe from the elements outside. As he lay there, I could feel him sinking deeper into rest, his breath slowing with each moment, his body relaxed in the comfort of the bed. The quiet stillness that had filled the room only a short while ago now seemed to settle in deeper, as if the world outside had faded entirely, leaving only this peaceful moment to exist. Outside, the wind continued to stir, but I could feel the way it barely touched the room. The house stood strong against it, the warmth of the heater and the soft glow of the nightlight working together to create a cocoon of comfort around Daniel. He was so small, so peaceful, lying there with a gentle smile on his face as he slept. And as I stood here, watching over him, I could feel that all was well. Nothing in the world could disturb the peace within this room. As Daniel slept soundly, his warmth flowing through the room like a gentle current, I stood guard, content in my duty to protect him. The wind outside may have howled, the cold may have tried to creep in, but inside everything was perfect. I watched the snow glow softly through the streetlight, its quiet beauty almost hypnotic in its simplicity, and I knew that for tonight nothing could reach him. He was safe in his bed, tucked in tight and surrounded by warmth. And in this peaceful moment, all was right with the world. Then the silence is interrupted by the sound of tires crunching along the snowy driveway. I watch as a car come closer, its headlights piercing the dim night, casting long shadows on the snow. The car slows, pulling into the parking space with a gentle thud of the engine coming to rest. I know who it is. Daniel's father, home after an unusual long day. I feel the muffled rumble of the car door opening, followed by the faint sound of footsteps crunching on the snow outside. They're familiar now, those footsteps, steady, purposeful. I hear him pause for just a moment, letting the cold air rush past him before stepping toward the door. The door opens with a soft creak, followed by the quick shuffling of boots being kicked off. I can hear their voices now, warm and filled with excitement. His father's voice, low and calm, the familiar sounds of home. From downstairs, the soft murmur of conversation rises, the voices blending together in a gentle hum. I can hear the rustle of a jacket coming off. The voices grow softer, closer, the quiet rush of comfort and care settling into the very walls around me. And I, the window, stand here watching, hearing and feeling it all, just outside of reach but a part of it all the same. And inside the room, Daniel sleeps, unaware of the small wonders unfolding just beyond his dreams. He is wrapped in the safety of his slumber, while outside, the world continues to unfold in the soft rhythm of homecoming. I can see everything through the glass, the way the branches of trees bow beneath the weight of the snow, the little footprints of animals left behind, and the dim glow of streetlights casting long shadows across the quiet street. It's a peaceful night, the kind where everything seems to pause, just for a moment, to take in the beauty of the stillness. And then, through the haze of falling snow, I see him, a familiar figure, steady and calm, emerging from the corner of the street. Mr. Clark. I've seen him pass by almost every day for as long as I can remember. No matter the season, no matter the weather, he walks this path, making his slow, deliberate way down the sidewalk with his dog at his side. His pace is slower now, careful, as though he's learned to navigate each step with intention. The snow on the ground makes the journey even more challenging, but Mr. Clark is undeterred. He's bundled in a thick coat, a scarf wrapped tightly around his neck, and a worn cap on his head, his silver hair peeking out from underneath. There's a kind of quiet dignity in the way he moves, his gait steady even as the years have taken their toll. At his side is his dog, a sturdy little creature with a coat as white as the snow that falls around them. I've watched the dog grow old with Mr. Clark, once a young pup with a playful energy that made it tug eagerly at the leash. But now, like its master, it moves with measured steps. Its fur has faded with age, but its eyes still gleam with loyalty, reflecting the soft light of the street lamp above. They make quite the pair, these two. Together they walk through the neighborhood like two old friends who have seen everything, and now, in their later years, move at a slower pace, savoring each moment, each step. I've noticed how the dog never strays far from Mr. Clark, always staying just a little ahead, but never too far. They are bound together in a rhythm that is as natural as breathing, a silent agreement between them that they will go wherever the other leads. As they pass by my window, Mr. Clark often pauses. He doesn't do it every day, but when he does, I always know what's coming. He stops for a moment, his eyes sweeping across the house, And then, as though he knows I'm watching from the other side, he looks up at the window with a soft smile. It's as if he knows that I, the window, have been a part of his life for just as long as the house or the street. Silent, always present, always watching. His hand will fall to the dog's head, a gentle pat, and they stand there together for a moment. Sometimes I wonder what they're thinking, what memories they're sharing in that quiet pause. Perhaps it's just the comfort of routine, the way everything in their world is familiar and known, a small piece of consistency in a world that is constantly changing. Or perhaps it's something more, a silent tribute to the days gone by. Either way, I watch them, and for that brief moment I feel the weight of years between them, a bond built on shared history and understanding. Tonight, as he walks by under the soft glow of the streetlight, I watch the two of them with a kind of reverence. They are as much a part of my world as the seasons or the snow itself. Tomorrow, he'll be back again, just as he always is, making his slow, familiar journey down the street with his loyal companion by his side. And every time he passes, he leaves a quiet trace behind, an echo of his presence that lingers like a gentle memory. As night settles around the house, casting shadows across the snow-covered lawn, a familiar rustling comes from just outside. In the soft glow of the porch light, a sleek black cat appears, slipping through the low branches of the hedges that border the yard. This is Shadow, a name I've come to know simply by the rhythm of his visits, and he's as much a part of this place as any face that passes by my glass. Shadow's arrival is a quiet affair. He moves with purpose, surveying the yard with a slow, deliberate gaze, his ears twitching at every sound. Night after night, he wanders past this window, pausing to stretch, to yawn, or sometimes to peer inside. There's a calmness to him, a sense of independence and mystery that fascinates me. The air changes around him, somehow quieter, more still, as if he carries the night with him wherever he goes. As I watch him tonight, his eyes catch the light, two small points of amber reflecting back at me. He seems to see everything but reveal nothing. I remember the first time he appeared, a younger, sprightlier shadow who dashed through the yard, his tail a streak of dark against the grass. Over the years he's grown comfortable here, sometimes curling up on the porch for a short rest before padding back off into the night. I can almost hear the soft padding of his paws on the snow, light and rhythmic, a familiar, soothing sound. There's something comforting about knowing that, even as people come and go, Shadow is out there, a quiet guardian of these familiar streets. I imagine that perhaps he has his own stories to tell, his own roots and rituals. But tonight he lingers a little longer, his gaze shifting between the stars overhead and this room where Daniel sleeps peacefully. Shadow seems to sense the stillness within, perhaps even my watchful gaze, as if we share an unspoken understanding. Shadow knows that the garden belongs to Mochi, Daniel's cat. Although Mochi rarely goes out at night, every cat in the neighborhood knows not to set paw in her territory without thinking twice. Mochi is a bit shy, but surprisingly tenacious. She fiercely defended her little patch of land when she first arrived, though it wasn't easy at the beginning. A few little fights left her feeling a bit nervous, but after she held her ground enough times, the others backed off. In her absence, Shadow respects her borders and strolls only around the outer edges, avoiding the garden when he can. Sometimes he even leaves her small gifts near the bushes, a feather he found or a piece of string, quiet gestures of friendship and respect for the garden's quiet but formidable guardian. Shadow is careful with which cats he associates. At the top of the nightly hierarchy is a sleek, grey tomcat named Smokey, who's lived on the block for as long as any cat can remember. Smokey is the unspoken leader, setting the boundaries and enforcing the rules. Shadow knows that Smokey keeps track of which yards are open to nighttime prowling, where to hunt for frogs, and which humans are friendliest. Once or twice, he's even seen Smokey flash a warning look toward a younger cat who thought it might be fun to sneak over Mochi's fence, quickly reminding them of the unspoken agreement. Through it all, Shadow remains an observer of this nightly world. He's friendly enough with his peers but avoids alliances or rivalries, and while Mochi doesn't join these outings, Shadow sometimes imagines her at his side, quietly standing guard over her patch of earth just like she does by day. Shadow slowly walked away and vanished into the dark, leaving only his faint paw prints in the snow as a quiet reminder of his visit. But even as he disappears, I know he'll return, a steadfast presence against the ever-changing world outside. And in this, there's a kind of promise, a feeling that even in the quietest moments of the night, we are never truly alone. Every evening, as the sun dips below the horizon and the world outside settles into quiet, I feel the stillness in the air. But there is always a spark of life from the house across the street. The warm glow of kitchen lights flickers on, casting soft shadows against the walls. That's when I know she's home, Mrs. Harper. I've watched her for years, observing her movements from my place in the room. She is in her 70s now, and though she's never married and has no children, she has become a constant in the neighborhood. When Mrs. Harper first moved in, she was a bit of an enigma. People weren't sure what to make of her. She wore eccentric clothing, bright scarves and hats that made her stand out. She didn't have many visitors, and for a while it seemed like she was just another solitary figure in the neighborhood. But even from the beginning, I could sense there was more to her. At first, the neighbors didn't quite know how to connect with her. She was different after all. But as time went on, I saw things begin to change. Little by little, Mrs. Harper found her place in the community, not by trying to fit in, but by simply being herself. I've seen Mrs. Harper do things that others don't notice. Little things, but important things. When someone in the neighborhood is feeling unwell, or when there's a sign of trouble, like when Mr. Clark, the elderly man with the dog, was sick, she would bake bread or make soup and quietly leave it on their doorstep. It wasn't about making a big show of it. She just knew what was needed and offered it, without expecting anything in return. One evening I watched as she knocked on Mr. Clark's door, a warm pot of soup in her hands. She didn't stay long, just a few moments to chat and check on him. I could see the appreciation in his eyes, even though they both said little. I've seen her do this countless times, always with a kind smile and a quiet presence. She's the kind of person who shows up when needed, but never demands attention. I've watched her drop by Daniel's family's house too, just to say hello or offer a little something when she could sense they needed it. They were new to the neighborhood when she first reached out, and I noticed her gentle way of easing their worries. When Daniel's mother was struggling with sleep, Mrs. Harper made a sachet of lavender and left it by their door with a note, "For peaceful nights ahead." But Mrs. Harper's kindness extends beyond just the people she knows. I've seen her interact with the neighborhood animals as well, especially the cats. Shadow, the sleek black cat, often visits her garden late at night. He knows the place well. Mrs. Harper leaves small bowls of food for him when she sees him roaming nearby, and sometimes he'll sit on her front porch waiting for his little meal. There's something gentle between them, an unspoken understanding. I've watched Shadow, his bright eyes shining in the moonlight, sitting there like he belongs. It's not just the food or the little gifts she leaves for the cats that make Mrs. Harper special. It's how she quietly connects the people around her. There's a bond that has formed over the years. The children who once found her eccentric now adore her. They stop by to hear her stories or to listen to her poetry. She's become a bit of a neighborhood grandmother, though not in the traditional sense. She doesn't hover, but she's there when needed, offering advice, kindness, and warmth. She just lives her life in a way that quietly impacts everyone around her. I've seen how the neighborhood has softened because of her, how people have learned to appreciate the small moments of connection. She's a reminder that we don't have to be loud or flashy to make a difference. Sometimes it's the quiet moments, like the flicker of a kitchen light or a neighborly gesture, that can create the strongest bonds. The world outside is quiet now, the snow blanketing the streets in a soft, muted hush. The last of the neighborhood's inhabitants have retreated indoors for the night. The old man with his dog, having completed his evening walk, is home now, and the cats have long since disappeared into the shadows, hidden in the secret places of the world where only they know how to navigate. Mrs. Harper's kitchen light has flickered out. I know she's gone to bed. Inside Daniel's house, it's also much quieter now. Then I hear the faint sound of footsteps on the stairs. They are soft but steady, a rhythm I know well, and I can almost predict the way they will sound, as I've heard them countless times before. It's Daniel's parents, making their way up to their room for the night. They move together, the sound of their footsteps blending in the quiet, a perfect harmony that speaks of the closeness they share, of a shared life built in quiet moments like these. They talk quietly to each other, their voices muffled but warm. I can hear snippets of conversation through the thin walls of the house. It's nothing extraordinary, nothing that demands attention. It's just the kind of small talk that fills the space between people who know each other well, who share the small, ordinary moments of life without need for fanfare. I can hear the soft sounds of them entering Sophie's bedroom, gentle sighs and loving words exchanged, followed by the quiet click of the door as it closes behind them. They talk for a few more moments, and then another sound. The sound of footsteps moving down the hallway again, a bit quieter now, more careful. It's Daniel's father coming down the hallway once more. He walks with the same soft, measured steps, but this time he isn't alone. Daniel's mother follows him closely behind, both of them moving toward the door of Daniel's room. I watch as they reach the door, their presence barely noticeable in the dim light that spills from the hallway. They don't knock. Instead, they open the door slowly, as though they don't want to disturb the peaceful silence that has settled over their son. The light from the hallway spills into the room, casting a soft glow in the room. But they keep their voices low, their words gentle. I can feel their gaze shift toward Daniel's bed. The way they look at him, softly, quietly, is one of those moments that holds so much meaning in its simplicity. Their son, asleep in his bed, is the center of their world. And for a few precious moments, they let the quiet fill the space. They don't need to say anything. Just the sight of their son, so small and peaceful, is enough. The soft glow of the streetlight filters through the window behind him, casting a gentle light across his face. It's as if the snowflakes falling outside have found their way into the room, drifting delicately through the window pane, illuminating his peaceful expression. The light, warm and calm, kisses his face with the tenderness of a memory yet to be made. The scene is breathtaking, still, and perfectly quiet. His parents whisper to each other, their voices barely audible. He left his curtains open again, his mother says with a small, fond smile, as if it were a sweet little habit she's come to love. I think he likes watching the snow, his father adds, his voice soft with the same quiet affection. They stand for a moment, taking in the beauty of it all. Daniel's peaceful slumber, the soft glow of the streetlight illuminating his face through the window, and the world outside, so serene and still. It's as if time slows down and everything settles into place, both inside the room and beyond the glass. In that quiet stillness, the world seems to pause, just for them. For his parents, this moment is now etched in their hearts, one they'll carry with them forever. The sight of their son, so small and peaceful, with the streetlight snow gently falling outside, fills them with a profound sense of love and gratitude. It's a quiet moment, yet it holds so much meaning. It's a memory that will stay with them, woven into the fabric of their lives, one they'll revisit whenever they think of their son, no matter how much time passes. These small, unspoken moments of beauty and love are the ones that shape us, that stay with us forever. After a few moments, they quietly turn to leave, careful not to disturb the peace. As they step toward the door, they exchange a soft glance, silently sharing this moment. One last look at their son, bathed in the soft light, before they close the door behind them. I sit here, watching the world while Daniel is asleep. He's unaware of all these small, quiet movements. But one day, when he's older, he will remember nights like these, the snow falling softly outside, the quiet peace that filled the world, and the feeling of safety and warmth that surrounded him while he slept. This, I believe, is how core memories are made. It's not the grand moments or the big events, but these small, quiet moments that build up over time, that create a sense of comfort and belonging. Daniel, with his peaceful sleep, is creating memories he doesn't even know are being made. The world outside is leaving its mark on him, and the snow, the lights, the gentle rhythm of the neighborhood, his loving family, all of it will stay with him forever, tucked away in his heart, a reminder of the world as it once was, a quiet, comforting place where everything, even the passing of time, felt steady and sure. And one day, years from now, when he sees the snow fall beneath the glow of streetlights again, an overwhelming peace and nostalgia will wash over him. He may not remember exactly why it feels so familiar, but that quiet sense of nostalgia will remain, a gentle reminder of moments that unknowingly shaped his soul.